a lot of teams think that they have a chance to win a national championship this early in January. However, very few actually do have that chance. And Ole Miss is gearing up for a run at a title right now. I'm chatting with Jake Crain of Crain and Company about their chances. And stick around until afterward, and I'll even tell you why Lane Kiffin is out for blood this year. Jake, Ole Miss is a team that a lot of people have their eyes on this year, and it's not just because of how they finished last year. They have been absolute monsters in the transfer portal. It seems like every time a big transfer is on the market, Ole Miss is a danger to land them, and they certainly have landed some big ones with Walter Nolan, Princely Emmanuel, Chris Paul Jr., linebacker, Ian Banks at safety. Like, there seems to be a focus on the defensive side of the ball. Just thoughts on Ole Miss and the transfer portal and what they're doing right now.
Well, there's a lot to break down, and in one very interesting way, and then obviously in a positive way, for the momentum that Ole Miss has created. We can talk about what they have returning. I mean, you bring back Jackson Dart. You bring back a couple of those aliens at wide receiver that we've seen. We know the offensive line, it's kind of been in flux, but you just got a big commitment from a Washington offensive lineman that's a pretty daggum good player, and I think they've finally built some depth. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the biggest jump for Ole Miss, it's never been, can Lane Kiffin score? Well, yeah, Lane Kiffin can score. It's can they be a complete team in all three phases, offense, defense, special teams, and can they win a rock fight when the jump shot's not falling, per se? And I think that's where Ole Miss is going to take their biggest jump. I don't care what anybody says. There's a ton of wide receivers running around. There's a bunch of DBs running around that can look quick, and all that's great. But if you want to bridge the gap to championship success, if you want to be able to go to Georgia and beat them, that Ole Miss did not do this year, go to Alabama and beat them, which Ole Miss did not do this year, it's up front. It stops and starts up front. I'd much rather have a bunch of dogs on the offensive line and defensive line than look pretty in the back end running around and hit a couple big plays. It's like Drake said on the start of Pound Cake, only real music's going to last. All that other BS is here today and gone tomorrow. But when you look at the opportunity that Ole Miss has, there's a lot that's matching up right now. You're going to a 12-team playoff, obviously, which gives you a better chance to kind of get over that hump, because I don't think people know, outside of diehard SEC fans, Ole Miss has never played in an SEC championship game. When we had the West and the East. Now, we don't have divisions anymore, but in 2003, they tied with LSU for the West, but LSU went to Atlanta to play. So it's like all these glass ceilings that can get broken in 1 year. You have a chance to win the SEC. Now, you're out of the West. Not that the East is easy and it's always fluctuated, but the two best teams are going to play at the end of the year. You don't have to go on the road to Georgia and to Bama this year. It's like, getting hit with an aluminum baseball bat when you walk in your door and you're not looking when that's on the schedule. Believe me, as an Auburn guy, I know better than anybody. But what I find the most fascinating is very few schools are going the route that Lane Kiffin is. We see a bunch of them utilize the transfer portal, and they call Lane Kiffin the portal king for a reason. But it looks to me, and I know they return guys, as I mentioned, with Jackson Dart. I can go through the names. But it seems like they're trying to build the ship out of the transfer portal. Now, when you match that with what they have returning, I think it could strike rich for him this year. It could really develop into something that could be a banner year for Ole Miss, not just within the SEC, but from a national perspective as well. My question is, can you survive and win year after year after year doing that? We see it in college basketball. We see it some in college baseball, but those are more individualized sports than football is. Not that they're not team sports, but football's a little bit different when you have 125 guys on a roster. You've got 11 guys on the field at the same time, and you're trying to build that chemistry. So a lot's going into it. That's kind of the long way of saying Ole Miss should have a damn good team. I'm interested to see if the Frankenstein theory, that's what I call it. We see it in the NFL. Hey, let's spend a bunch of money on 1 year, get some mercenaries in here, see if we can win it like the Rams did, and it worked out. Will it work out in college football? I don't know, but I'm very excited to see this experiment get run out.
Do you think that college football just in general, and I guess we'll see if the success, like if teams can continue to have success with it, for all intent and purposes, Florida State did something similar last year.
Yeah.
And if Jordan doesn't get hurt, they build it that way, and through the portal. Do you think that if teams can continue to have success with it, make the playoffs, do you think that'll not be the new model, but be kind of a way that teams look to attack things? We'll get right back to our interview with Jake, but if you're enjoying this, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button below. We're nearly to 1,000 subscribers. We've been doing this for just a little over a week. If you're an Ole Miss fan or just a fan of college football in general, make sure you're part of the College Football Addiction family.
Well, look, I mean, how did Leonidas end up beating the guys from 300? He took the GOAT path. Sometimes you can't just walk through the hot gates and do it the exact same way that everybody else has done it. Sometimes you got to be a little unconventional. But I do want to throw this caveat in there. And Ole Miss is in that exact same boat this year. Florida State had a lot of pieces coming back that they added transfer portal guys with, having Jordan Travis, then you add Keon Coleman to a guy like having Johnny Wilson and then Benson and stuff like that. Ole Miss is very similar. You have a lot of guys returning, and you've went at important spots like Jackson Dart at quarterback. I can go down the litany of the list, but you're building in guys that are kind of armoring up what you already have. Florida State this year, with what they've done, and I know you know better than anybody, TJ, you're bringing in a quarterback from the transfer portal. You are truly building this team out of the transfer portal at the most important spot. So you have a choice to make as a coach. Either I'm going to use the transfer portal as the hot dog or as the hamburger, or I'm going to use the transfer portal as the tomato and the onion and the lettuce. You're either going to build the burger out of it, right, from its core, or you're going to turn it into a condiment party, right, which sounds a lot worse than it is, and try and dress up what you already have by adding the transfer portal. To me, just instinctually, having been in it for as long as I was in it, I think you will have these years that hit in the transfer portal, but I don't think it is a good idea to just build the whole thing out of the transfer portal every single year. I just don't see that being a sustainable way, even with the 12-team playoff, to be able to stay championship relevant as much as humanly possible, as opposed to developing personnel out of high school and then adding on big pieces and plugging up holes to the ship with the transfer portal like we've seen some of these other teams that are doing it. But I don't know, TJ, because we don't have any data on if it can work or not over time. That's what the most fascinating part as a college football fan in general is to me.
I think when you talk about Ole Miss and you think about it, like, is it sustainable to do it year after year after year? Probably not, right? Like, you've got to build some of that base. But what the transfer portal is going to let Ole Miss have a chance to do this year is really add all those right pieces, like Florida State kind of did at the last second to kind of put them over the top, right? Like, they returned a lot, but man, you can really, like you said, you can make that burger from a really good burger to like dress it up and do that sporadically. And then how much does that help you? And we saw it help with Florida State going from like 22nd recruiting up to the top 10. And so, like, how much does that help your total program outside of just the wins and losses that one year?
Oh, it's massive. Well, and you got to get the right guys, though, too. Like, it's not anything different than high school recruiting. You want to bring in the right – you want really good players. Duh. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that out. If you want to win, you probably need to have the best players or be somewhere close to it. But you got to bring in the right type of players. But where I think, TJ, people don't talk about the way that Ole Miss has used the transfer portal, where have you seen a lot of it? It's been up front. Yeah. So it's very hard right now for Ole Miss to go in a living room. Not that they can't, right? And beat Georgia on a 5-star defensive end, or beat Alabama on a 5-star offensive tackle. But when can they get those guys? Through the portal. So not only are you able to get good players through the transfer portal at a position group where maybe – playing wide receiver in Lane Kiffin system's a lot sexier, right, than playing offensive guard when you're going up against some of the other big dogs. And that's how you become a big dog and get over that hump, pun intended. But experience is the unteachable intangible. You can have all the talent in the world, but I cannot – we don't – I can't hook myself up like Neo to the Matrix and learn karate. Like right now, I just can't, right? But if I go through that experience and say, hey, Walter Nolan, guy who's – understands what he's going up against, that's a really talented player, or Prince, or some of these other guys up front, if you go get the right guys, it can really, really behoove you and be used to your benefit. And I think that's what Ole Miss has done. That's why, and I don't, especially now with the transfer portal, Tej, I don't make predictions until we get done with fall camp. I need to know who's where, who's hurt, right, and who won what job. But Ole Miss, it's hard right now to sit here and say, especially when you look at that schedule, Not that there's no easy schedule in the SEC. I don't care what anybody says. Insert joke here, whatever. You have lighter schedules and heavier schedules. Ole Miss is on the lighter end of the schedule when you look at some of like Florida. Y'all know this better than anybody. I mean, Florida, you're welcome to hell. That's basically what next year is going to be.
So I know you don't want to make a prediction, but we'll wrap up the Ole Miss with this. Nothing out of conference. They've got LSU, no Jaden Daniels, Oklahoma. We'll see what that looks like. They get UGA, not easy, but at home, they got to go to the Grove. True or false, Ole Miss has as good a chance as anybody to see UGA or whoever it ends up being in Atlanta.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, Nick Saban just left Tuscaloosa. Yeah. I mean, Auburn's still building. Mississippi State, is going through a transitory period, even though I love the hire of Jeff Lebby. The time for Ole Miss is now. This is it. This is your time. And you've wanted this opportunity. And you did just win 11 games when you include the bowl game and you have momentum for what you did against Penn State. But at some point, you got to stop holding hands and you got to go in for the kiss, man. Like this is Ole Miss's year. Hey, you close your eyes, I'll close my eyes. Let's find out. Let's see if we like it. So there's a lot of pressure on Lane, but this is the pressure you wanted. Right, this is how you elevate yourself, and you go from having to drink sparkling cider at the kids' table on Thanksgiving to now I'm drinking wine from Bordeaux with the rest of the adults talking about the stock market.
Jake, where can people follow you? Where can they find you? I love your show. You do a great job, but tell people where they can find all of this. And I appreciate you so much taking some time today.
Dude, of course. Love your work too. And, you can find that anywhere. But yeah, look, if you watch your shows, we're on YouTube, Crain and Company, Crain and Company. We go live each weekday morning, 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central. It's 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. I'm not smart enough to know the other time zones, but I'm sure y'all can figure it out if you live in them. And if you can't catch us live, that's fine. It stays up there all day. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it's spelled the same. We do have live calls, kind of fine bombish a little bit. We have great callers that call in. We have a live chat that's very, very active. That's a lot of fun as well. And we just had a movie come out called Lady Ballers. Everybody just Google the trailer. I think you'll get a kick out of it. But yeah, man, we have a good time. It's sports shows the way they kind of used to be, and talk a little bit of everything, including a lot of college football. So, but I appreciate you having me on, man. Like I said, I love what you're doing, and definitely down to come on. We got to get you on Crain and Company here soon.
I appreciate Jay Crain for hanging out today. Make sure that you check out Crain and Company here on YouTube. All right. So Lane Kiffin is absolutely out for blood this year, and I think it comes down to two main reasons. Number one, I think he felt disrespected for being an afterthought in the Alabama coaching search and not getting the Alabama job. Now, you can say what you want about Ole Miss. Ole Miss fans, I'm not trying to tell you that he'd have just immediately jumped ship or left or anything like that. His decision would have been his decision later. It wouldn't have shocked me if he'd have gone on to Alabama had he gotten an offer. But I do think that a coach like Lane likes the attention. I think he would have liked that offer. I think he would have liked his name thrown around in that circle a little more. Maybe more like Mike Norvell's or Dan Lanning's or Steve Sarkisian's. I think that he feels disrespected by that. And I think he absolutely wanted that job. You could tell that he was positioning for things on social media, the way that he was tweeting about it, the way that he was talking about it, the way that he was taking thinly veiled shots. And Lane Kiffin's the kind of guy who absolutely wants to make you pay for any perceived disrespect. He reminds me of, again, Michael Jordan. When Michael Jordan would invent trash talk from other teams when they weren't trash talking him to start a game. He'd use that little extra motivation, and usually his teams would have to pay for something that they had never done. No disrespect was ever shown, but MJ would take it to the next level as if there was. Number two, I think that everyone talks about Lane Kiffin like he's just the funny guy on social media, like he's just the guy who happens to be there. And there's a lot of disrespect for Lane Kiffin. And people talk about him not being a good coach, not being a good recruiter. He can't do it. He can't win the big game. I think he's been storing all that up. And I think he's been letting that build because he is out to absolutely prove every single one of those doubters wrong. He is out to take Ole Miss to a level that they've never been before. Going to be something amazing to see. We talked with, again, Jake, about this. This team is going to be really, really good. I can't wait to hear from you guys. I want you to tell me your thoughts on Ole Miss and where you see them falling in the SEC this year. Can this be the year that they finally get over the hump and do it? We've been at this channel for a little over a week now, and is Ole Miss a team that you guys want to see this year, whether you're a fan or not? Does this team take it to the next level? Are your thoughts about them any different after watching the video? We're building something pretty special here. We're trying to do our best on this channel for you. So let us know in the comments how we can improve, how we can get better, what teams you want us to cover more, and we'll do that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, and thank you for watching the College Football Addiction.